Hi, Abraham. My question sort of goes into hers a little bit, only it's related to a health issue. I have a lot of happy things in my life, wonderful things in my life, and then I have this thing show up in my body, this painful burning that has a lot of labels. I've gone different, it doesn't matter what it's called.
It's called resistance.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And if you call it that, it's better because
it's resistance.
It's easier, it's softer, because resistance, is something you can deal with. In other words, we always tell our friends, if you've got some resistance and you don't know it, so you don't do anything about changing your vibration, you don't reach for a better feeling thought, don't worry, it will get bigger. And if you still don't do anything about it, don't worry, it will get bigger. Yeah. If you still don't do something about it, don't worry, it will get bigger. Law of attraction says that it must. And finally, sometimes it gets big enough that it gets your attention. And you say, oh, there you are. Okay. My example of resistance. Thank you for getting my attention.
I've heard you say that if you get something before you learn these principles, it's more difficult to release. But it's not that I talk about it, it's just that because I feel the burning in my body, I think about it, there
it's logical, isn't it?
It's there.
It's a lot easier to release resistance pre-manifestation than post-manifestation for that very reason. In other words, once something has come into your experience, then it's logical that you would observe it, and then it's logical that in observing it that you would perpetuate it.
And I know that I'm doing that by observing it, so I try to think of where's my set point and how do I work up this emotional scale, and I'm not even sure where my set point is.
But can you feel how, if you could make this an emotional journey rather than a physical journey, in other words, because there is the discomfort of the burning, and there is also the discomfort of the not being able to control it. In other words, there's the physical discomfort itself, but then there's the discomfort of knowing that I could do better, or the discomfort of wishing that I'd been wiser. And so if you will, for just a little while, for a week, give it 1 week, where you just try to feel better about it emotionally. In other words, say to yourself, I don't expect to see even a particle of difference in the way I feel. Okay. That's not what my goal is this week. My goal is not to change the physical sensation at all. Okay. My goal is just to let myself off the hook a little bit. Stop beating up on myself about it. Just feel better about it. Here you are now. It doesn't matter where you've been. Now you're clearer than you've ever been. And aren't you proud of yourself for attracting information that lets you know that you are the creator of your own experience? Very often, the first thing people say is, yes, I'm the creator of my own experience. And then they say, oh, I'm the creator of my own experience.
Exactly.
In other words, and when things are going well, then you pronounce yourself the creator of your own experience. And when things are not going well, you say, oh, it must be karma. Really, it's just about the thoughts that you think. Am I letting myself off the hook, or am I beating upon myself still further?
So letting myself off the hook will just make me feel better, better and better and better.
You will. Do you know that every illness, or whatever you want to call it, we don't even like to give it that heavy of a label, is about resistance. Every illness is about some resistance, and people are trying to get rid of the illness when what they need to do is release the resistance that is the reason for the illness. And that's the reason that most people, even when they release an illness, turn around and find another one and another one and another one, because the essence of what's bothering them just keeps replicating itself in different diagnoses, you see. Right. You don't even have to go back and figure out what bothered you. You just have to find things that don't bother you. You just have to predominantly think about things that don't bother you, predominantly think about things that make you feel good, and you'd be in a place of non-resistance, and any disease that ever came because of resistance would have to go away because of the absence of resistance. We would take all of those labels out of our personal dictionary, the labels of all of those diseases, and we would call them all resistance, minor or major. And we would not be so concerned about the labels even called emotion. We'd call it feeling good and not feeling so good, and graduations of it. And then we would just set out to sniff out the best feeling thought that we could find. So do you think that when this got started, or when you first became aware of it, was there something big, bad, and awful that was happening in your experience that you were pushing against, that is still happening in your experience that you're still pushing against? Or was it just...
It was just something then. I don't feel like it's going on now.
And so, can you hear us when we say that if then you had the vibration going on that you've got going on now, it couldn't have gotten started.
Yes, I can hear that.
So what we're saying to you, or what you could say to yourself is, my vibration has shifted so much, I couldn't kick this off now. And the only reason I'm even continuing it is because I'm observing what I kicked off then. So if I could observe it less, in other words, feel how all of that softened, even how the resistance is softening even as we're visiting here.
Yeah.
I don't even have enough resistance in me now to get this thing started. I've got a little momentum going, so I can keep it going.
Yeah.
But now how can I slow the momentum down? Well, by not thinking about it, not talking about it, not mentioning its label, not mentioning that I've had it, not trying to describe it, not discussing it with others, not talking about it. In other words, I'll replace those words with other subjects. And when I find myself focused upon this subject, I'll find softer way of talking about it to myself. That's the process.
Softer way of talking about it to myself.
For example, let's say that 20 years ago, somebody hit you over the head with something heavy, robbed you, and beat you up and raped you. And you still can remember all of that. And one of the reasons you can remember it is because you joined a group where you talked about it on a regular basis. And so as those feelings started to fade within you, as they always do as time passes, then somebody new came into the group who had just recently had that experience, and as that person told their story, it reactivated the story within you. Now, this was really a dramatic demonstration, and it's not nice of us to take any of you down that path for very long. We just want to say to you that anything that's active in you today is only active because you've kept it active. Right. And in the moment that you stop continuing to activate it, it's going to dissipate. You're not like a storage cabinet where everything is in there still as a point of attraction. Your brain is a transmitting and receiving mechanism, and it's only what you're actively activating and keeping active that is even part of your attraction process. So that's why when people fall in love, often things get better because their love interest gets a higher percentage of their airtime, so to speak,
yes.
And their vibration improves and their resistance goes away and all of the things that they've been wanting begin to flow in, you see. So all you have to do is just focus upon things that feel better. But we know how it is when you got something that's been bothering you, you've been dragging it around for a while, it seems like it is worthy of discussion. And you just have to decide it's not worthy of discussion anymore.
Well, it's just discussion in my head, really. And
that's the discussion that we're really talking about. In other words, when you think about it, it's active.
Yeah.
And when you try to explain it to the mysterious whoever they are, it's still active. And when you try to defend it, it's still active. And when you try to explain it, it's still active. And when you try to justify it, it's still active. So it comes back around to the new game Jerry and Esther are playing as they find themselves thinking or speaking about something. Do I want more of this? Esther laughs and says, well, actually, no. No, actually. And sometimes they'll even dramatize that. Well, let's see, yes. Wouldn't it be nice if everybody did that? In other words, they really dramatize it until it makes them laugh at the potential of what they were doing to themselves just by pointing out this thing that they do not want. Yes.
I like that. Do
It's
I want
great
more
fun.
of that? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.